families in emergency accommodation. The the deputy is 4 minutes.
Thanks, Vascan Cora. Just 11 months ago, I think tomorrow, Minister, your colleague, Deputy Coveney, launched the Rebuilding Ireland strategy, which was an attempt, obviously, to address the spiralling housing and homelessness crisis. It did set out some ambitious goals, but it highlighted, I think, again, the government's ideological total reliance on the private rented sector as a provider of housing. And one of Minister Coveney's many promises, of course, which have been reiterated consistently over the year, was that by, and I quote, mid-2017, emergency hotel and B&B type accommodation for families will only be used in limited circumstances and will have been largely replaced by suitable permanent family accommodation by delivering additional housing solutions, end quote. And the Part 34 of Rebuilding Ireland has a whole section on moving families out of hotels, and I quote, "It's recognised that accommodating family units in hotel arrangements is inappropriate for anything other than a short period of time. Our intention is to move the existing group families out of these hotel arrangements as quickly as possible and to limit the extent to which such accommodation has to be used for new presentations." Now, the Minister Coveney, he's continued to repeat the message, as you know, Minister, over the past 10 months. You've said it yourself, I think, as well, with July 1st as the target. Over recent months in particular, like many other deputies, I suppose, I've got an increasing amount of calls from very stressed and distressed parents wondering what will happen to their family in the next 6 weeks. Families who have been living in cramped hotel rooms for 6 months, 15 months, 18 months, 24 months, desperately hoping to be permanently rehoused. They're now waiting for a call to tell them whether they'll be moved to the next temporary accommodation, and hoping that, of course, their children's school and support needs will be taken into consideration. The April figures are late, Minister, but during the week of 20th of March, the most up-to-date figures available, there were 1,069 families with 2,134 children homeless in Dublin. 712 of these were single-parent families. The remaining 187 families and 429 children are spread across the country, and 118 of these families are headed by a single parent. A large proportion, of course, of the Dublin families are from the constituency I'm very proud to represent, Dublin Bay North. Now, families have rightly pointed out that if they're in the private rented sector, they'd be given notice of a move-out date. With just six weeks to your deadline, Minister, when will these families be told, what is their future accommodation going to be? At a briefing organised by my colleague Deputy Boyd Barrett earlier this week, my parliamentary assistant asked Mr Mike Allen of Focus Ireland whether his organisation has any indication of what was happening, given that Focus Ireland are providing the family support work to homeless families. It seems that communication around the matter has been dire, and Focus Ireland's understanding now is that only new families entering homelessness will be diverted into the so-called hubs, and that those in a hotel accommodation will remain there until housed. So is it true now, Minister? Can you confirm this evening that it will be only families who are becoming homeless after July 1st who will be diverted from hotel and guest house accommodation? And what will happen to the thousands of children and adults who are now living in that accommodation? When we first heard about the hubs idea, Minister, which is basically homeless hostels for families, I asked Minister Coveney a number of PQs to try and ascertain the type of accommodation these hubs might be. And unfortunately, Minister Coveney evaded answering that question. He said that the answers to the family homeless crisis will be increases in rent supplement and housing assistance payment levels. But HAP, as you know, Minister, is largely unavailable, in my experience, to families who are in homeless accommodation or coming out of homelessness. So basically, Minister, when will you stop allowing landlords and developers to hold our country to ransom? The family homelessness has been a multi-million euro business for hotels, with 40 million alone paid in 2016. How many houses would we have built for that, Minister? And that's why I will be supporting the motion later on this evening in relation to a FEMPI-type programme to end family homelessness. In conclusion, Lascan, it's now utterly disgraceful, I believe, that families in hotels and guest houses are being put under grave additional uncertainty over recent months and up to the end of June. They've already endured incredible disruption, Minister, and damage to their children's lives due to the close down of social housing by the current and the previous two austerity governments. Thanks, Ken.
4 minutes.
Again, I want to thank Deputy Broughan for raising the issue, and something that we can discuss as well. But I want to say at the start, it's not an ideological issue that we're relying on the private sector. We recognise that we can't overnight provide enough social housing to be able to deal with the situation. And sorry, Tommy, we have a housing programme that has started. You're well aware of it. We've secured the largest investment ever in the state. It's been secured by Simon Coveney to invest in this. But and you refer to the last two governments. I think if you check the records, you'll see the provision of social housing was wound down before Fine Gael came to government at all, and before your previous party, Labour. Yeah, so we didn't do it. We have done our best to ramp it back up again. So just to be clear on the record here, it was not a Fine Gael decision to stop. Just want to be clear, can I please speak? I want to put this on the record because I'm sick and tired of being told that it's my party are the ones that stop social housing. We're not. We're the ones that are putting social housing back front and centre of what governments should do and what local governments should do. And I've been around the country with local governments telling them that we expect and we want to continue with that, that local authorities are the lead agency for social housing. That was stopped by other parties in government, but it was certainly not Fine Gael. And you know that, and please stop saying it as if it's true that it was us, because it wasn't us. And we're doing our best to put it back as quickly as we possibly can. But in saying that, I still thank you for raising the issue and providing the opportunity to update the Houses on the actions that have been taken to address homelessness, in particular family homelessness, including our goal to ensure that hotels are only used to accommodate families on an emergency basis and in very limited and exceptional circumstances from the end of June onwards. This government is fully committed to addressing the issue of homelessness. Under the government, there has been a focused and coordinated approach to tackling this across government departments and agencies. As we know, Rebuilding Ireland has been set up. It was launched last July, as I said yourself, over 9 months ago. It's a whole-of-government plan. It's been developed in close cooperation with other key government departments and agencies under the oversight of a dedicated Cabinet Committee chaired by an Taoiseach. And again, we meet every month on that to discuss all the issues. I was there again last month myself. The plan sets out the path to achieving the critical national ambition of ensuring that all our people have access to quality and affordable housing, and to really ramp up what local authorities are able to deliver in terms of new builds and voids and so on, and actually purpose-built social housing. The long-term solution to the current homeless issue is to increase the supply of homes. Accordingly, Rebuilding Ireland is designated to accelerate all types of housing supply, social, private and rental. During the lifetime of the plan, some 47,000 new social houses will be provided, supported by executive investment of over £5 billion. And housing output generally will be progressively increased towards the target of producing 25,000 houses per year through all channels, and we hope to hit that target even ahead of our own 5-year plan. It is intended that long-term housing needs of those currently homeless, including those families currently accommodated in hotels, will be met through housing support such as the Enhanced Housing Assistance Payment, the HAP scheme, and general social housing allocations. Significant outputs are being achieved in this regard. Housing authorities achieved over 3,000 sustainable exits from homeless accommodation into independent tenancies during 2016, a record level of exits in a calendar year. And it's untrue to say that HAP has not been providing a useful solution to help some of those families who are homeless and come out of hotels. Well, that's not what you said. You didn't say your area. You said it wasn't working, and you are wrong in that. Okay, 3,000 left last year. Accommodating family units in hotel arrangements is inappropriate, and I would totally and utterly agree with you on that, for anything other than a short period of time. Accordingly, Rebuilding Ireland makes explicit the commitment to ensure that by mid-2017, hotels will only be used as emergency accommodation in limited circumstances. The need to limit the use of commercial hotels as emergency accommodation is particularly relevant in the Dublin region, given that approximately 85% of all homeless families are in the Dublin region. It is my intention, and our intention, Minister Coveney's intention, that families will be transitioned from hotel arrangements as quickly as possible, and to limit the extent to which such accommodation has to be used for new presentations. The mid-2017 target is a necessarily ambitious one, and it's one to which Government remains fully committed to. We must be ambitious in addressing the social issue, and while we acknowledge it is a challenging objective, given the continuing numbers of those presenting as homeless, I am pleased to see progress being made in this regard. I am confident that the April homeless figures, once finalised, will show a significant reduction in the reliance on hotel accommodation for homeless families. And that's the key to this.
Deputy Broughan, Tommy,
thanks, Cam. No, but the reality is, and people are going out of jobs today, both finance and Taoiseachship and so on and so forth, is that your party was involved in the complete cessation of any kind of a reasonable social housing programme. As I said, if you go back to one of your predecessors, Mr Jimmy Tully, he ensured in a very poor time that something like 25,000–30,000 houses were built in this country in the early 1970s. But you haven't answered the question. I mean, what is the future for those families? Is it going to be, as Focus Ireland understands, that only the families newly becoming homeless are those families that won't be sent into hotel accommodation? You're not ending the uncertainty and the disruption for the families here tonight, Minister. Minister, unfortunately. You're not addressing the key point. You talk about HAP. Now, certainly the experience of Dublin Bay North, and I believe all the other high-rent areas of the country, is that HAP is not working, and particularly for people facing homelessness and people trying to come out of homeless accommodation. Every letter I get from people in the homeless executive says that this citizen and their family are eligible for HAP-type accommodation. But the very same people have sent out dozens of emails, have attended dozens of viewings of apartments and houses and so on. And when people find out they're coming out of homeless accommodation, there is no tenancy available. That is the reality. Your HAP system is just not working for the people I represent. And can I just say, one suggestion, Minister, you might ask why doesn't, in my case, Dublin City Council and Fingal Council, why aren't they directly responsible for organising to provide HAP accommodation, rather than asking a hapless and very vulnerable homeless family to have to do it for themselves? I notice also now that the modular housing, which has been referred to a lot by your senior minister as well, that's now also scheduled to become permanent accommodation, despite the problems that we had again in this city back in the 70s and 80s with modular type quick build housing. So I do welcome a small suite of measures in rebuilding Ireland, but it's been far too little and too late for the thousands of adults and children that I represent and that other deputies represent. Quite clearly, we do need a much more drastic solution, Minister, and unfortunately your own government won't give it to us.
Again, just to be clear, you raised a couple of issues there. Just on the rapid build construction, just to let you know, Deputy Broughan, some of the rapid build construction houses today are being sold privately for over £500,000. So they're not a modular home. They are a proper house that will last 60, 70, 80, probably 100 years. So don't be trying to give the impression that they're not that. No, I did actually, yes. Probably more so than most people here. Yes, I did. So I know what I'm talking about. And I've seen all these. And I've seen rapid build and every kind of build. And I can trust me, I've watched the rapid build houses being built and being sold for over £500,000. So don't try and give the impression that they're some sort of a pretend house or not a real house or not a permanent house, because that's not what they are. They are a genuinely good house. And there's loads of different types of rapid build construction. I want to be clear on that as well. Just in relation to you said that HAP is not working. HAP is only one of the solutions. And family hubs and other purchasing houses through the housing agency and using houses through the sale and lease back scheme, they're all options to bring in more houses. But you keep insisting that HAP is not working. To me, HAP is a better scheme than the previous rental assistance scheme. Can I finish, please? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I'd love it. That'd be great. So, just so that we put some figures into it, right? The housing authorities last year, it's worth noting that there was over 1,200 new social housing tenancies were awarded to homeless households nationally in 2016. And furthermore, that we expect those families currently accommodated in hotels will primarily have their housing needs met through the housing assistance payment. You say that no homeless person is getting a HAP. Last year, I'm pleased to say that over 800 HAP tenancies were created for homeless households in the Dublin region pilot during 2016. So there was over 800 houses. So I'm just saying, factually, you're not right. You might have some cases that are difficulty. I'm not saying HAP works for everybody, but I'm just saying the facts speak for themselves. This year, there's been over 500 tenancies have been achieved today since 2017. So there are people who are presenting new to being homeless, are being found accommodation through the HAP scheme, other schemes as well. In relation to the family hubs, and I've been in these family hubs, and I asked you to go and have a look at some of them. I visited the Respond one, and I visited the Matter Day one, which will be ready in June as well. And they are very, very good facilities for families. And yes, they will be, if a new family present to be homeless, and if we can't get them a house through all the various schemes through the HAP, the family hubs will be used for them as well. In some cases, some people that are in hotels might transit to a family home first of all, but the intention still stands that by the end of the year,
we're moving on.
Yes, just one line.
To
those
the next
people,
one is Deputy
just one line in hotels will be out of hotels.
We move on to